Todd Palmer, welcome to Paper Napkin Wisdom. I'm excited that you're joining me here today, and I love the baseball stuff and sports stuff behind you.
Thank you so much. Well, it's great to be here. It's an honor to be here. I've known Jack Daly for many, many years, and I know he's a big fan of your program and your processes. So it's truly my honor to be included in part of such an esteemed group of previous guests.
It really is our honor. And I know you've been very impactful in entrepreneur and CEO communities. So I'm really excited to have you with us. And you shared a really interesting napkin. So the napkin reads, "The problem is never what you think it is." And you underlined and capitalized never. Why did you share that with me, Todd?
Great question. And I actually had a backup napkin, just so you know. I was fired up. You inspired me to create two napkins, and it was tough picking one. As a young entrepreneur, I was very much focused on what is the problem. I saw myself in the communities I ran in with EO or YPO or a Vistage groupings of like, we're always there to solve the problem. And I would think often that I've got the problem solved and it never would get solved. And then I hired a neuroscientist as my coach, Dr. Danny Friedland. He wrote a great book called Leading Well from Within. You can't lead others until one can first lead themselves. And he shared with me that it's never what you think it is. And I was blown away. I'm like, oh, no, no, no. I know the problem. The problem's a money problem. Entrepreneurs, we never have money problems. I had money problems. I have a money problem. He goes, that's not your problem. That's the result of a deeper issue. And we would go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. Finally, he got it through my head that it's never what you think it is. So for me, when I was an active entrepreneur, I would think I have a money problem. Well, I have to fix the money problem. I need to change my banks. I need to change my receivables. I need to change my sales process. I need to increase my margin. I need to do something externally out in the world with the bank, with the customers, with my employees, with wages. The reality was I was both the cause and the solution to that problem because I was the problem. And so in that mantra that it never is what you think it is, it causes me to take massive accountability and massive responsibility for business. Then I started working with another person named Susie Kamen. Susie Kamen has been in my life now, gosh, 6 years. And she recently married my new wife, Jennifer, and I. And Susie's a John Gottman disciple for couples counseling. And she's all part of the Imago program. And then she also said to me, the problem is never what you think it is. So I'm thinking I've got this covered for business, but I'm entering into these personal relationships. I know, oh, I can fix my kids. I know what their problem is. I did the same dumb things when I was a young person. Oh, I can tell my now wife, well, I clearly know what the problem is, and it's clearly her. It's not me. Well, the reality was when Susie said it to me again, it really helped me bring it full circle for my entire life. It's never what you think the problem is in business, and it's never what you think the problem is in your relationship, which blew my mind. Susie says to me, couples fight about three things: kids, money, and sex. That's basically what they fight about. Go a deeper level than that. Well, it's about power and control. Oh, okay. So it's not about these externalists, isn't it? And I'm trying to have power. Jennifer's trying to have power. Go a little bit deeper. Why do I want to have power? Why do I feel out of control? Why do I need to regain control? I need to, because I don't feel safe. Oh, so if I have an external issue with my spouse, an external issue with my kids, an external issue in business, it's something going on with inside of me versus me looking for someone else to change. And for me, well, that's a great, it's like Spider-Man 101. With great power comes great responsibility. I had to really think through that. And I still continue to think through that I have a huge part in whatever I'm struggling with because it's never what I think it is.
Yeah, that's first of all, so much there. I want to say congratulations
Thank
on
you.
your recent wedding. That's really great,
Thank
you
you.
and Jennifer. And I like what you were saying about power and control, and this idea of perception. You're not perceiving the problem. So let's talk about. Let's go back to the first stage when you first learned this idea, right? That the problem is never what you think it is, and how you applied it. How did you shift that mindset? Because it's easy also to take that the other way and say, I'm the problem. And it becomes a beat up on Govin, beat up on
Oh,
Todd
yeah.
thing, right? Like that's the first place we go. Like, I screwed this up. I screwed this up. I screwed this up. That's not what you're saying.
But that's what I did. And that's why I had to hire Danny, because I call it the itty bitty shitty committee. My imposter syndrome would just scream out, you suck. All the narratives, you're not enough, you suck, all these different things. What the fix for me is a thing called the active learning cycle, which is to recognize your reality. And in the beginning of the top of the model, like think about it like the hands of a clock at the 12 o'clock is this is what's not working for me. So for me, I had an external problem. Wrote about it in my book, From Suck to Success. I'm $600,000 in debt. I'm 60 days away from running out of all of my money, and the bank is threatening to take my house, which me and my son, I was single parent at the time, we were going to be homeless. And in a binary thought process of either right or wrong, which is imposter syndrome for me, how it shows up for me, I either did it great or I did it awful, never in the middle. And then when I do it awful, which is about 90% of the time, I tell myself I'm a failure. And then that feeds in, like you talked about, it feeds into the negative narrative and into the monster that doesn't serve anyone, including me. So in the active learning cycle, which I learned from Dr. Danny was, okay, what's the issue? I'm in debt. The debt is real. I have to handle it. It's what's not working for me, being in debt. So the first thing is I set an intention, not an expectation, that moves me from my amygdala to my neocortex in my brain. So what's not working for me? I'm in debt. Okay. I'd like to be out of debt someday, not by 6 months or like the bank wanted their money right away, or we'll give you a year. No, I'll be out of debt someday. What that then pivots into is ideas around that intention, not expectation. So it's what's not working, the intention, not expectation. Then I create a strategy. So we tried a million different strategies at Diversified Industrial Staffing when we were trying to dig out of this debt. And then we'd get feedback on those strategies. And it's an iterative, active cycle loop. We would do it sometimes 4 or 5 times a day. Try this, try this, try this, try that. And it was during the recession here in Detroit where unemployment went from 4% to 15%. You don't need a recruiter. And we're iterating and we're iterating and we're iterating. And we started seeing little hopes and little things. Cut the debt off of the bank, started iterating, instead of having a success person of the week, we started creating the failure of the week. Who had the best, worst idea? And then how do we as a collective, the 5 of us, work through that idea to come up with different questions? So the deepest part of the model is the curiosity-based question. And in that curiosity-based question, it's not, hey, recruiting company, do you need to hire somebody? No, the answer is no. You have 15% unemployment. You need a job, you need a body, you'll find another body. When you're out of the loser of the week was a guy named JP. JP came up with the question of when you want to hire again, what is the first position in manufacturing you're going to hire for? And we track that. And we started hearing the same positions start coming out over and over and over again, the hard to fill. So what it caused the organization to do is to move away from seeking jobs to going to find the job seekers, the unemployed. And we started keeping an inventory of those people that they were going to be needing in 1 to 2 or 3 years when they were going to hire again. And we started marketing them back and forth. And magically cash freed up because we found unicorns.
Yeah.
And we started placing these unicorns in these companies when there was no jobs available because the wise owners at the time realized in Detroit getting away from manufacturing automotive manufacturing to aerospace, medical device, high-end tech was the way to go. So we'd find these people, start reverse engineering, marketing back, and all of a sudden we started to grow the business, started to make more money, and started to turn the business around.
You just dropped so much there. But I want to go with one of the last things you said first, right? Which was this curiosity-based question. And when you're in your head, right? When you're in your head, I find this happens to me, and I want to see if it resonates with you. But when we're in our heads, that committee, that itty bitty shitty committee that you talk about, that committee makes all the narrative that when you're speaking, you're not even listening anymore. You can't be curious when you're in your head because you're doubting yourself. You're listening to yourself instead of listening to the feedback and being open to everything else. And that's where perception becomes projection, right? Like we see the world as we are, not as it is. And so that's a bit of a trap. So the pre-step to that, I like this that you said was, going to an intention instead of an outcome. Well, being in that, making it present tense, that was a thing that was a problem.
Yeah, well, the itty bitty shitty committee lives in your fight, flight, or fear, which is the deepest, going back to the napkin. So when I even get out tripped up now, I still get tripped up now. I mean, I retired 7 years ago, sold my company. Now I coach 24 CEOs around the globe. And they show up with their homework, with their list of all their issues. And it's for them to clear out their mind. I approach all their stuff with curiosity. And so when I'm tripping and triggering over something, so if my itty bitty shitty committees, my track is running, my responsibility is the burden of awareness. I have to be aware that the track is running. Then I have to slow it down just a little bit and say, I wonder why that track is running. I have to deepen into curiosity. Why? Because it's never what we think it is. I have to deepen into curiosity. I'm like, why am I doing this to myself when I know it doesn't work and it doesn't serve me or others well? But yet I'm doing that. Why am I doing that? Slow down. It's an internal dialogue. And I still have a coach. So I sometimes text my coach, hey, can you talk? I'm doing this looping thing that doesn't serve me well. I have to get back into curiosity, but I realize when I can't get back into curiosity, I'm stuck in fight, flight, or fear because I don't feel safe. So I always have to go back to curiosity.
Yeah. And it's really interesting to me to hear you talk about that you pick up your phone, text your coach and say, hey, can we have a minute? Because action cures anxiety, right? Like
Mhm.
taking action cures anxiety. And you did that. That's what you do even now. When you start
Right.
to, you notice it, not judge yourself. And I was really interested to see you didn't judge yourself. You just noticed. I've
Right.
noticed that I'm on the treadmill. All right. I gotta. Here's the action that's going to get me off the
Mhm.
treadmill.
Well, and I still sometimes listen. I don't want anybody watching or listening to say, "Oh, that guy's figuring out a way not to judge." We all judge ourselves. It's how do I approach myself when I'm feeling that way with grace and acceptance, knowing that I will judge, and knowing it doesn't serve me well. And the goal becomes, if I was judging myself and making up a number 100 times a day when I was at my worst, if I'm now judging myself 5 times a day, I've reduced the pain, I've reduced the anxiety, and I've reduced those fears. It's still going to happen, but when it happens, I have that awareness now to say, that doesn't serve you well. Why are you doing that? The goal becomes, and this, learning this again from Dr. Friedland, is self-coaching. I am the cause and the solution to my problem. And, the reality is you can make it. I've done this from stage. You can make an argument about anything. Someone said to me, I was in a car accident, and the law officer was very clear that it was the other driver's fault. Where's my responsibility in this? I think you're full of crap. I said, well, you chose that route.
Yeah.
You could have waited 5 minutes, and then that person would have been through that space and you wouldn't have been hit. It's not to shame, shit, and guilt on ourselves. It's to have, where's our responsibility? And when we have that responsibility, it's often a shared responsibility with others. It's an and both. But in that space, I don't feel like I have to be a victim or a martyr. And when I'm not a victim or a martyr, then I judge a whole lot less.
And then you're a student, and then you can be
Right.
curious, and then you can
Right.
learn, and we can be open minded, right? I mean, the way to be a better listener is to be genuinely curious,
Mm-hmm.
and to be a student. And if you're in your head, you can't do those things. So I love all of what you said, and I love those tools and those examples. Let's talk about power and control a little bit. This idea of projection versus perception, projection, power and control. How does that play out? I mean, you talked about it being a full circle thing, right? That you learned it in business life, applied it in family life. And you're talking about kids, money, and sex, and all of those areas. How do we get away from the power and control ping pong table, where sometimes things can be really acute, right? Things can be on fire in one part of our life or another, and we think the narrative is, I need to control this, I need to
Mm-hmm.
control this. What do you think about that? What's your
I think
step?
it's I think it's part of the human experience. First of all, I think we have to recognize it's going to happen, and when it does happen, how do we deal with it? If I'm with Jennifer and we're fighting about right, better yet, we fight about driving of all things. Which way do we go, right or do we go left? All we're trying to do is show the other party I'm right, you're wrong. What if this helps with dealing with the power control? What if you're never right and you're always wrong? Stay with me on this. You and I meet at a party and you're telling me a story and I'm creating I'm creating judgments and opinions of what you're telling me because that's the human nature. Like I no, I don't, I've never met anybody who listens absolutely. My brother spent time with the Dalai Lama and he asked him some of these questions. He's like, oh yeah, I judge people all the time and I'm the Dalai Lama. I'm like, cool. If it's good enough for him, I'm okay with me.
Yeah, yeah,
But you're telling me this story and I'm trying and I'm not, and I'm listening to respond. Well, I would have done this differently. Here's what you should have done. Here's my ideas. I'm instead of I don't if I don't listen to respond, if I listen with curiosity, I literally use a different part of my brain. So when we're fighting about which way to go down the street, what if there's no right? What if we went my way, we would get there 2 minutes faster? Let's say that's the fact. But if we take her way and we go to the left and we go around, we're still going to get there. We're just going to get there 2 minutes later. Is it really that important to me that I'm going to fight with my wife over 2 minutes? Listen, yeah, listen with curiosity, see where she's going. There's many times like, cool. So now what we've done is we just let the GPS decide which way we're going to go. So it takes away the power and control. We've assigned the power and control to technology.
yeah. Hey, you know what I love about that too is we could answer another narrative too, right? What if we go left and we drive by this beautiful place that we like to look at together,
Yeah.
and that wasn't part of the discussion of going right and left. And if we approach that question or that moment, not the question, but the moment with curiosity, then we understand underneath it there was something else.
Yeah. Because
And
when I listen with curiosity, I absorb. When I listen with judgment, I listen to respond. It's almost like think of like this the bullets in a gun. I was, I'm telling her all the ways that she's wrong, that my way is right. I'm superior, you're inferior. But when we do that to anyone, we do this to our kids all the time. We're big, they're small. We're old, they're young. We know more. Well, when I approach my 15-year-old with curiosity and I listen to absorb and not respond with her, I get a whole lot better conversation and her self-esteem is a whole lot higher because human beings only want four things. We only want four things. We want to be seen, we want to be heard, we want to be known, and we want to be accepted. And when we have all those things to the very baseline is then we feel safe. And then when we feel safe, well, what don't we do? We don't fight for power and control
yeah,
as much, unless we're truly stranger
as
danger. That's
much,
a different
right?
thing.
It's always as much because we talked about that 100 down to 5, and the Dalai Lama still does it at least
Yeah,
once. So if it's good enough for the Lama, it's good enough for us. So let's also talk about why. Okay, in teams, then one of the things you just talked about too, in this driving directions thing, you could go right or left, or maybe even straight, and either way you go, you're still getting to the destination. So if
right.
the destination is the goal, is there a wrong or a right way to get there? Well, alignment with a team is also understanding that maybe there are things along the way that we need to achieve, and we need to understand those things. And sometimes we talk too much about the solution, right? As opposed to how we're solving it. And that's most of the time more important. How, like the middle,
Yeah,
the meaty part, like what are we
it
doing? What are
is.
we doing
And
today?
I often
How are we
find,
living the day?
yeah, I often find with leaders, they have a go-to leadership style. And so, I find that basically we can lead people three ways. We can sell them on an idea. Hey, we could go to the left, and if we go to the left, we're gonna go past Dairy Queen. And I've got $10 burning a hole in my pocket. We can stop at Dairy Queen. That's a sell. We can tell that team we're just gonna go that way, or we can collaborate. And I think in your example, working with a team, I think the deft leader, the really talented leader, knows when to pull which of those three levers. Because sometimes collaboration is absolutely the way to go. Sometimes, as the leader, we have to sell them an idea. And sometimes, especially think about human capital areas of we got an employee who's toxic to the team, who maybe is your number one salesperson, but they're destroying the culture. Sometimes we just have to tell the sales manager, Bob's got to go. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, but I need his numbers. I understand that. As the organization, we do need his revenue. But the long-term play, where we ultimately going to go is I want a healthy organization. And I can't have his toxicity eroding this culture we've spent 10 years building. So we'll figure out the revenue. We have to think of the bigger goal, and Bob's got to go.
Yeah. In the same way that tell is about a person, isn't often sell about a person too? Like, I mean, could aren't we often when we're in a good zone as a leader, we're selling people on faith. We're selling people on belief. We're not selling people a thing. We're not like sort of hoodwinking them, with a cloak and a stack of watches in our jacket. We're not. It's not a pitch as much as it is. It's compelling them to have faith in something, compelling them to have faith in each other, compelling them to try again, because or reframe failure like the way
Right.
you did, right?
Yeah.
I think that's the
Well,
way we sell them more effectively.
I
When
think when you reframe failure, a great way I've found to do that is to just take the word fit. Danny told me this, and it literally changed my life. He said, "You act as if failure is real." I said, "Dude, I got a whole list of failures. You can't tell me they're not real." It's like, "Oh, I can tell you they're 100% not real." When you work with literally a brain surgeon, someone who understands how the mechanism works, you can't. And this guy would debate the guy, which is probably not my strongest moment. But I'd say, I don't understand. He goes, you learned. He goes, so if you take the word failure out of he goes, failure is a word that a human being put in a dictionary. The brain is learning constantly. It's rapidly iterating, and you're creating new neural connections. So get rid of the word failure. Say, I learned. I mentioned before we started talking about baseball, right? I still play baseball. If you fail 7 out of 10 times, you're a 300 hitter, which is considered a good hitter. Well, there are times when I've hit a baseball the best I'm going to hit it, and somebody makes a great catch. Did I really fail? I learned who not to hit it to. That guy's a jackrabbit. He'll catch anything. There are other times when I hit it off the end of the bat and it cues to right field and it gets past the guy and it goes all the way to the fence because the field is sloped and I get a triple on a ball I barely hit. Which one? Statistically, but one I hit better. So if we recognize that we learn every single minute of every single day and every single pitch I face and every single business deal we talk to and every guest we have on our shows and every conversations with our family, if I've dropped the ball with my kid plenty of times. And I always own, hey, I could have done this differently. My part in this was I wish I would have done this. I didn't have access to my brain to do that, and I would do this differently going forward. She feels seen, heard, known, and accepted. It keeps our relationship close and tight. And I don't walk around like a lot of people do, feeling like a failure as a parent. So I think failure is replaceable with learning.
Yeah, and Kobe has a great piece on this, right? I think you've probably seen it on
I
BET
have, yeah.
when he talks about failure, and I'll throw this into the show notes for anybody who's listening, because he just sits there back and pure Kobe style says failure doesn't exist.
Yeah.
I just don't believe it exists, and he talks about why. Um, I noticed something that you do a lot, and I wonder if this is part of your coaching, and I'm sure you're aware of it because you do it all the time in this conversation, is you are using a lot of I terminology as opposed to, when you're walking down the street and you meet somebody or you come on a corner. No, you do it. I'm driving with my wife. I'm driving with Jennifer, and we get to a corner and I say this and she says that. That ownership of the situation, that I speaking, also puts you in a place of control of yourself, learning for
Mhm.
yourself, right?
Right.
That is intentional, right?
It's 100% intentional. Here's why it's intentional. You and I could be best friends. We could have grown up, we could have been born in the same hospital, grown up in the same neighborhood, across the street from it, going to the same high school, same college, and be neighbors now. And you can say, Todd knows me better than any other human being in the world. Maybe that's true, but I never know you completely. So, going back to a statement I made earlier, I'm never right because I never know all of you. Even with my coaching clients, I will say to them, well, what do you think I should do? So, well, let's talk through it. And I would lay out, when I get them to say, I will do this, they own the solution. What a lot of clients want to do is transfer the responsibility to the coach. And unless I truly would say, here's a time when I tell somebody what to do. If you're billing $1 million a year and qualify for EL, and every year you're losing $100,000, I would say you do not have a revenue problem, you have a profit problem. I would say that. And we would dig into why you behave that way, and it typically goes to the behavior of the entrepreneur. If someone says to me, I have a problem in my marriage, and I get that a lot because I coach the whole human, I will use examples of how I've worked through things with Jennifer or in previous relationships, but I would never tell anybody, you should do this, you should do this, you should do this. here's what I did. Here's how and I would always say this. When Jennifer and I have a fight, I'm very clear, as much as I hate to admit it, publicly or privately, that I am part of the problem.
You know
It's,
this is recorded, right, Todd?
I know, and she's going to watch it and she's going to say, I'm proud of you, and you are. Because we always have a part in this. And Susie came and taught me that. We had a big issue come up one time, and I was very clear that I wasn't part of the problem. And I had her going like 20 minutes. Finally, here's what she said to me. She's like, you are part of the problem. I said, I followed your entire 5-step process. I followed it to a T. My partner has admitted I've done everything I can possibly do. He goes, here's where you're part of the problem, Todd. I'm like, please hit me. You picked her. You don't like it? Pick somebody else. And I'm like, checkmate. We always have a part in it, just like the accident example. You got in the car. You could have waited. You could have got an Uber. You could have biked. You could have walked. You could have had Instacart deliver your products and services. You could have done all that. But you chose to get in the car, and that is your responsibility. So I have to speak from I statements because I coach others to live in I statements.
Powerful, very powerful. I knew it was intentional. All right, so let's talk about another thing that I noticed, and I will say that I thought it was striking because I know of your reputation as a coach, and coaches in general, I've observed, tend not to say always and never. However, on your napkin, capitals underlined, never. You mean never.
I mean, never.
You mean never.
It's never what you think it is. It's never what you think it is because there's so much unknown to you. And you could say, well, I have 100% of the information. Great. So you have an issue with it. I'll give you an example. I had a client who was convinced that his employee was disrespecting him, not following the core values of the organization. Convinced. And he was going to fire him. This was the successor to the owner. Manufacturer on the wall, football 101, Vince Lombardi. On time is late, early's on time. The new plant manager who had been a president someplace else and was on a succession track that I was part of negotiating with him. And he left a 6-figure job to take this new 6-figure job, was late 3 times in 5 days. Client, can you talk? Yeah, what's going on? He's got to go. What's going on? Tell me more. I never say he should or he shouldn't. I said, tell me more. Tell me more. Because when you're panicked, you got to tell me more. Tell me more. He's been late 3 days. It's Thursday. He's the third day he's late. Okay. And we're having lunch on Friday. He goes, I'm going to fire him tomorrow. It's always your choice. Do you mind if I talk to the guy? He goes, waste your time. I don't care. You're picking me up for lunch and you're buying. We're going to lunch at noon. Be here by 11 o'clock. No problem. So I get there. Bob, the plant manager, greets me. Hey, how's it going? Oh, man, I love it here. This is a great place. Hey, let's go for a walk. Show me what you're doing for the plant. And he's showing me all the different things. I got 45 minutes to kill now before I meet the owner for lunch. I said, hey, let's go over here and have a conversation. How's it really going? Is everything going like you thought it would? He goes, oh my gosh, it's better. They treat me wonderfully. I can't wait to take it over. I got 3 or 4 clients lined up that when we move a couple other things, we're going to bring in about $3 million in new business. The guy's doing everything he said he was going to do. Yet he's been late. I said, cool. How are things at home? Yeah, home's not good. Okay. My mom's in hospice. And I've been late 3 times this week because of it. Our hospice worker has to take public transportation to get to the house to replace me on our duties. He had a whole he had a scheduling problem. He didn't have a disrespect the owner. I hate your culture and your core values. I'm going to do my own thing. So it said, when you talked to the owner, how did that go? Well, I was hoping he didn't notice. I said, okay. Great talking to you. I'll make sure I come and say goodbye. I'm going to go check my head in and say hi to John over there. I'll be back. Go and talk to John. Say, all right, so where are we going to lunch? I said, give me 10 minutes. Fine. I talked to him. Here's what I've learned. I told him the hospice story. Owner starts to cry because I knew he had lost his mom recently and he believed so much in hospice. So what we had is we didn't have disrespect. We didn't have core values violation. We had 2 middle-aged guys, want to create proper context, who weren't talking to each other. He didn't say, hey, you're late. No, I know it never happens, right? And I don't want you. Hey, I got it. So I said, here's the issue. Here was the solve created by the owner who didn't fire the guy. They got the hospice worker a rental car. Solve the problem. Now, flash forward 2 years ago, it was announced last month that there's a new president. It's the guy he was going to fire. Now, we've done a lot of work around creating crucial conversations within the organization because there was a lot of dysfunction because everybody was afraid of the owner because he thought in black and white. He didn't approach things with curiosity.
Yeah. The other thing that I find in my experience, if we rush to an accountability conversation, if we rush to a consequence conversation without asking the question that you asked so astutely, is everything okay? How's life at home? What's happening for you? If we skip that part, I find that I've lost credibility with the person every single time I've done that. Every single time that I go to, you didn't, how come, blah, 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 whatever it is, if I skip the, is everything okay with you? Then I've lost all collateral to hold them accountable. Not just them, not just then, but any other time. Is that true?
I think it's if you approach people with curiosity, you just create a deeper trusting relationship. And when I trust you, you will let me hold you accountable. In the old hierarchical manufacturing mindset, people needed a job, so they just did what the company told them to do. Today's world, with Uber and freelance worlds, the employee's in the driver's seat in a lot of cases because there is a big talent shortage. Even if you can go offshore, there's still a talent shortage for most categories. Try to find a heating and air conditioning guy on Super Bowl Sunday when your stuff goes out. Good luck finding somebody. There's just not enough people. There's a gap of talent around a lot of categories. So if we have deeper trust and you know I'm going to approach you with curiosity, chances are you're going to come to me with honesty versus defensiveness. Hey, I know I was late. I got a hospice situation. Here's what's going on. Versus, I wasn't late. No, I came in the back door, not the front door. It, well, why do we get defensive? We get defensive because we feel shame and guilt because we know we were late. Versus, if we create a psychologically safe environment where people are seen, heard, known, and accepted, then they will approach us more often than not with the real issue. The brain wants to keep you safe. So by being defensive and deflecting and getting louder and bigger or whatever we do, the brain is telling us it's kept us safe because at one point in our lives it did. This didn't need to be the case. I had two people not talking to each other because I'm right, I'm right. Doesn't work. Neither one were right. And the reality was neither one were wrong.
Exactly. And so seen, heard, known, accepted, and owning the fact that the problem is never what you think it is, help to build something better there. Todd, I know we could go on for a while longer. I am very grateful for the conversation that we had here today. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me. It was absolutely a ton of fun. I really appreciate you reaching out.